In this tutorial, we will use the coordinator pattern. The content view uses a coordinator pattern to navigate to the details view when a row is tapped on within the list. So this is what we'll be implementing, this navigation feature using the coordinator. As you can see, when I click on any of these rows, it displays the selected information on another view, which is the detailed view. The coordinator pattern in SwiftUI offers several benefits. Separation of concern. The coordinator pattern helps in separating navigation logic from the view layer. This separation makes code base more organized and easier to maintain. And the second aspect of the coordinator pattern is that it allows more reusable navigation logic. With the coordinator pattern, navigation logic can be encapsulated within coordinator objects. These coordinators can be reused across different views, promoting code usability. It also enables better testability. Since navigation logic is isolated within the coordinator objects, it becomes easier to write unit tests for navigation-related functionality. This improves overall testability of the SwiftUI views or any views that you're using in the application, including UIKit view. Within your SwiftUI project, the first thing we need to do is to create an empty file, as we need to include our JSON payload, so our app includes some data. So create a new file, hold down the control key, and then left click on the mouse, select new file. Make sure iOS is selected, and then filter on empty file to type in empty. And we want the last file, which is the empty one, within other. Click on next. Let's call the file data.json. Our JSON file will include 3 objects that has 2 key value pairs of ID and name. So I will just copy the JSON payload that I have on the clipboard. I'll just paste it. So this is the actual data that the application will be working with. The next file we need to create is an item struct file. And the purpose of the item struct is to enable the JSON content that we have here to be extracted using Codable. So within our JSON struct, we need to include ID and the name. So let's create the item struct now. Hold down the control key and then left click on the mouse. Select new file. Select Swift file. Click on next. We will name the file item. Struct item identifiable codable. Let ID, use ID. Let name string. We now need to create an item service class, and the purpose of that class is to enable the JSON payload to be loaded and retrievable within the application. Call the SwiftUI item service. This is the name of the class. Now we need to define a class, item service. The class will only have one method, fetch items completion. So within our closure, we need to include at escaping. So our closure will enable the application to return an array of items, which can also be optional, and return an error, which is also optional. Void. The next thing we need to do is to retrieve the URL of our data.json file within our bundle. Main URL for resource. The name of the file is data with extension JSON. Else, if there's some error, within the closure, include these values if there's an error. Nil, NS error, domain. I'll just leave that blank for now. Code 0. NS localized description key. JSON file not found. And then just type in return to exit. If there's an error somewhere, we'll compile it. It's nil. Oh, that should be on line 15. That should be completion. Compile it again. Just compiling at the moment. On line 15, it calls the completion handler with an error if the JSON file is not bound. And then, if the JSON file is found, it will enter into this do catch statement. Let data equals try data content of contents of URL. So what that line does, it will read the contents of the JSON file into a data object. That should be little c, the contents of. The next thing we need to do is to initialize a JSON decoder instance. Let decoder equal JSON decoder. And then the next thing we need to do is to decode the JSON data into an array of item objects using the decoder. Let items equals try decoder decode item cell. So we're decoding an array of items. That's what the open bracket, close bracket means. From data. And then using the completion handler, we need to return the results back, the closure. So the items is an array of items on line 25. And then, if an error happens on line 28, we need to catch the error. And then using the completion, we send the error to the caller. Just compile it. Just compiling at the moment. The next file we need to create is our item view model. So let's create our new file, which is a Swift file. Call the file item view model. Click on create. And now we need to create our class, item view model, observable. We want to observe and detect any changes within the class. also need to create a publish property. Bar item. And the purpose of the publish property is to publish our array to the caller. Private let service item service. Now we need to create our initializer to include some dependency injection. Item service. I can delete that one. So within the initializer, just type in the following: service, item service equals item service. Line 17 we can delete. So it should be on line 14, that should be service for the variable. Service. Line 17, self.service is equal to service, the passing service. On line 16, we initialize the item view model with an optional item service. So what else are we doing? We include dependency injection as well. And the purpose of using the dependency injection is to allow a custom item service instance to be injected. Next thing we need to do is type the following: fetch items. That method doesn't exist at the moment, so we need to create it. Func fetch items. And the importance of that method is to fetch the items from the item service. So it just acts as another layer, that's why we're using view model. Next thing we need to do is to call the fetch items method of the of the service object. The service.fetch items, which is a completion handler. And then on line 23, we have to do weak self. And the purpose of using weak self is to avoid any memory leaks. Items error. And then now that we're in the closure, we need to use a guard let statement to make sure that the items are not nil. So if it's not nil, then we will assign the items to our items property. Print error fetching items error dot the error question mark dot localize description unknown error. Then we need to add return. So if there's an error, this will be displayed on the console print statement. And then we need to type in cell question mark items equals items. So if there's no error, our array, which is our items array, will be populated by the publish property with the items from our JSON payload. Let's compile it again. Oh, there's an error on line 23. There shouldn't be a comma after the last bracket. Compile it again. Just compiling at the moment. Next week, we'll focus on the app coordinator class. The purpose of the coordinator class is to enable navigation throughout the app. In this tutorial, we will create the app coordinator class. The main purpose of that class is to manage the current state of the app and the selected data item to be displayed on the destination view. Within your project, create a new Swift file. Name the file app coordinator. Next, define our class, app coordinator, observable object to observe for any changes within our object. And then we need a publisher, at publish, var, content view. So the purpose of the publisher is to track any changes in the content view. And then we need another publish property at publish bar selected item, which is optional. And the purpose of that property is to store the selected item that will be published to the actual application. Next, we need to create our initializer and then create an instance of the view model, item view model. And then we need to create an instance of the content view. Let content view equals content view view model item view model. So within our content view, we need to create a new variable called item view model. So navigate to your content view and then after lines 10, we can create our new variable, which is at observed object var view model item view model. We can delete our preview as we're not using it. Now we return back to our app coordinator class. On line 19, that should be capital C for content view. And on line 19 for the parameter, that should be view model. The next thing we need to do is to assign the content view publish property to the content view. So on line 21, we're assigning the content view to the publish property to publish all the changes back to the UI. And then we need to create another method called navigate to details view that accepts an item and then type in selected item equals item. So that's the item that we have selected from our list, and the item will then be available within the details view when it navigates to the details view. Just compiling it. So we need to fix that part there within the coordinator pattern app file. After line 11, enter the following: at state object var coordinator equals app coordinator. And then we need to supply our view model within the coordinator. So just type in coordinator dot content view dot view model. And the purpose of line 15 is to pass the item view model instance from the coordinator to the content view. And then to make the coordinator accessible, we need to assign it to the environment object, coordinator, now it should be compilable. To enable our previews to work with mock data, we need to create a mock item service class. So that's what we'll do now. So let's create our new class, new file, call the class, mock item service. Define our class, mock item service, that implements the item service. Private let items, which is an array of items. Next thing we need to do, so the purpose of lines 12 is to store an array of mock items that we can hard code for our preview to work in the content view, just for later. So now we have to create our initializer. Our initializer accepts an array of item objects. Self.items is equal to items. And then we need to override our fetch items method, which is in our item service class. Override func fetch. So that's our completion handler. And then using our completion handler, we pass back the items within the array. And nil means no error happened. I'll just compile it again. In the next tutorial, we will access the coordinator pattern within the content view so that we can see how navigation will work using the coordinator to share information around the application. This tutorial focuses on the content view, but we use a coordinator pattern to navigate to the next view and display the selected information. So if we select one of these rows here, the item 1, it will display the selected information using the coordinator. Within your content view, add an environment object property after lines 11. At environment object var coordinator at coordinator. And the purpose of the environment object is to access the coordinator, access the properties within the coordinator. And then within the vstat, delete lines 17 to 20. On line 16, change the vstat to be a navigation view. The next thing we need to do is to create a list. And the purpose of the list is to display a list of model items. Item in. And then to enable the user to select the item that they want to view, we need to add a button and the purpose of the button is also to navigate to the details view using the coordinator. Coordinator dot navigate to details view. Navigate to details. And then we want to pass the selected item that we selected on the list to the navigate details method of the coordinator. On lines 22, we need to add this open bracket. and then create another B stack. The purpose of the B stack is to show the items such as the ID and the item name. Text ID, item ID, font, subheadline, dot foreground, color, dot secondary. Next thing we need to do is to display our second element, which is our item name, dot font, body, and then after lines 34, we need to add our navigation title. Just call it items. You can delete the padding on line 39. And then type in dot full screen cover, which is the first one. For the items, we want to pass in the coordinator dot selected item. And then within our closure, we need to capture the selected item. And then that will be displayed within our details view. I'll just add a little comment. Needs to include the navigation view and details view. I'll just run it now to see if it displays the information on the list. I'll just run it on the simulator. As you can see, the items are now displayed within the list. But if you click on one of the items, we're unable to navigate back at the moment because we need to create our details view with the back button. The next view we need to create is our details view. So create a new SwiftUI file. Hold down the control key, left click on the mouse button, select new file, click on SwiftUI, view, click next. call it details view. We can delete the preview. And then after lines 10, add the following variable, which is let item. And the purpose of that is to store the selected item. Lines 15, into the following, vstack text ID, item ID, dot font, headline, foreground color, primary, padding. So what that does, it sets the font and the padding for the ID element of the text. And then we need to also display the item name. Dot font, body, dot padding, spacer. And the purpose of the spacer is to push the content to the top. And then after lines 26, we need a navigation title, dot navigation title. We just call it details. And now let's run it to see if we're able to select from the content view, and the information should be displayed within the details view. So now I'll select one of the items, one of the rows from the list, and it should navigate to the details view. Oh, it doesn't. It seems like we forgot to include something. Must be in the content view. So let's go back to the content view. Oh, here on lines 40 to 45, we need to include the navigation view and the details view of the selected item. So that's why it wasn't showing anything. Navigation view, details view, selected item, dot navigation bar, navigation bar, items, button, back, coordinator, dot selected item equals nil. And the purpose of doing that on line 44 is to dismiss the full screen. So now I will rerun it to see if it works. I will select item 1 again. Yeah, now it's working. As you can see, the selected item is displayed within the detailed view. And this is all done using the coordinator pattern and a little bit of dependency injection with some MVVM. Thank you for joining us. If you found this tutorial helpful, please comment, like and subscribe. See you next week.